Let me start off by a couple of qualifiers. What I'm about to say and what you will hear is pertaining to West Houston. Let me say that it pertains to West Houston. And secondly, what I'm about to say only applies to those homes, structures that have already where water already exists in their homes or in an apartment complex. Okay. So if there's no water in your home or apartment complex, what I'm about to say does not apply to you. Okay. So we're specifically referring to West Houston, and the area that I'm focused on is west of Gessner, east of Highway 6, south of Interstate 10, Katy Freeway, and north of Briar Forest. That's the area that I'm specifically talking about. West of Gessner, east of Highway 6, south of Interstate 10, Katy Freeway, and north of Briar Forest. And again, and I'm specifically within that area, I'm specifically limiting my comments to those structures that already contain water. Any other structure, any other home, any other apartment complex in that area, if it doesn't contain water, currently, this what we are about to say does not apply to you. So I want to be very, very clear. On yesterday, I asked people to voluntarily leave those homes or those apartments in this particular area where water existed, where water was currently in their homes or apartments. The first responders over the past 24 hours have canvassed the area. They've canvassed about 3,800 homes, 297 residents, approximately, have chosen to shelter in place, even after we have asked them to voluntarily leave. So about 300 still have chosen to shelter in place. Since we had the press conference on yesterday, approximately 116 have chosen to voluntarily evacuate. And as this morning, there was a fire in the Memorial area in the 600 block of White Wing that it was very difficult for the first responders to get to because of the water in the area. The situation cannot continue, and it's not going to improve. It's not going to get better. The Corps of Engineers is still releasing water, but it is posing an increased hazard and increased danger for the people who are choosing to stay in their homes or in the apartment complex, and it's posing an increasing danger for our first responders. And it's my obligation to try to balance the interest. And because people are choosing to stay, even after we've been asking them to leave, and the situation is not going to improve over the next 10 to 12 days, I have no choice but to issue a mandatory evacuation for those individuals who are living in homes or in apartments in this particular area who have chosen to remain in place. And I am issuing a mandatory evacuation. I have discussed this matter with the county judge. I've also advised Senator Betancourt and others in the area of my plans. And so, let me say, as of tomorrow morning, at 7 a.m. in the morning, Centerpoint will be canvassing the area and identifying homes or apartments or structures where water is currently in their homes or on the apartment complex, and will start to turn off the power as of 7 a.m. in an attempt to prevent any additional fires that will place people in risk, even though they choose to stay, but particularly, and at the same time, protect the safety of first responders. This is something that I hate to do. I would have preferred if people had voluntarily chose to leave, but people have made a decision that they choose to stay. But I have to balance the interests of those who choose to stay versus people, the first responders, whose duty is to go out there and maintain their safety. So as of tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., Centerpoint will commence on a very selective basis to turn off the power where water has already infiltrated people's homes or apartments. Now, as a caveat, if by chance, for example, you do not fall in this category and the power, and you lose power, just like, for example, there were two neighborhoods that lost power today. That was not as a result of CenterPoint turning off their power. That was a power shortage of some kind, and CenterPoint has gone off to turn that power on. So tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow, or 2 days after tomorrow, if by chance you should lose power and you don't have water in your home, okay, and you're not in this particular area, then it will be due to something else. Please notify CenterPoint, and we will work, and I know they will work to get your power back on. So this is a very limited mandatory evacuation, and the power that will be turned off is very limited in nature. So, for example, you could be in one block, and your homes may be underwater, and you can be in another block, and your home is not underwater. The only power that will be turned off is the power to your home in that particular block. That is the beauty of having these smart meters in place, that we can selectively target those particular structures where home has already inundated their properties and the power is on. This is in the best public safety interest of people who have chosen to stay, and it's also in the best public interest of our first responders who are out there working to maintain the safety. Chief Penny.
Thank you, Mayor. So, from my perspective, I support the mayor in this evacuation order for the limited parameters that he set out. Those homes that are inundated and will remain inundated for the next 2 weeks. Firefighters are going to work around the clock tirelessly to keep you safe. But the response profile that we have out there right now cannot be maintained. We will not have the additional FEMA resources and boats to be able to get into these areas and service people that choose to remain in a hazardous condition. And it's my professional opinion that people that remain in inundated areas are in an unsafe situation. The hazards that exist in these situations are presenting a problem for first responders. The hydraulic pressure that's being pushed on these homes, because it's flowing water, it's not stagnant water. That pressure is causing shifts in utilities. That's going to become a source of problems. And it's a different environment if we know people are in there that we have to effect an immediate rescue, than if we know that those homes are vacated. It's a different risk approach. So we have to consider the hazards that exist. Electrocution is a definite hazard if we remain energized in standing water. The wildlife that has been seeking refuge, that's been displaced, is also a hazard. There's areas that we can't ascertain what's underneath that water. There's open manhole covers. There's trip hazards. There's hazards that exist for our firefighters that are going in there and having to fight fires in the conditions that you see here in these pictures. That is irresponsible of me to allow that and not support an evacuation of this limited and narrow scoped order. So for that reason, I do support this effort. We have to consider the firefighters who are putting themselves at risk in order to protect these people that choose to remain in this hazardous situation. We have to think of the firefighters' families as well. It's irresponsible of me not to support this order, and for that reason, we do. We will have resources available on scene to assist you in evacuating tomorrow morning, and we will do our due diligence to ensure that people get out safely. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Floyd LeBlanc, 5th CenterPoint.
Thank you, Mayor Turner. I'm sure Chief Pena would support me on this statement. There's still a couple of hours of daylight left today. If you choose to leave today, that's better for all concerned. But tomorrow morning, under the order given by Mayor Turner, who has the authority to do that, CenterPoint Energy is in fact regulated by the City of Houston, and we follow orders from the mayor, just like the fire department or the police department. We follow orders from the mayor. As a public safety matter, we will use the smart meter technology to turn off the electricity for homes that have water in them and the electricity is still on. Let me make a couple of comments about the ongoing recovery area and ongoing recovery effort. In most cases, CenterPoint Energy's focus is on turning power on. We like to have your power on, just like we know you want to have your power on. Earlier today, we had 8,700 customers without electricity. 5,700 of those were as a result of the premises being inaccessible because of high water. We had some additional customers lose power, as the mayor mentioned, in that general area because a substation is underwater. We rerouted power to neighboring substations and a couple of lines got overloaded. Our crews are in fact in the field working to repair the damage that resulted in those outages. Other than the mayor's order, CenterPoint Energy is not turning off power. We're out restoring power. But in this case, in the interest of public safety, for the residents, for the first responders, at the direction of the mayor of the city of Houston, CenterPoint Energy will be using smart meters to turn off power tomorrow morning at 7 a.m.
Chief Satterwhite with the police department.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The police department also supports the mayor in this on this decision. I was out there earlier on the water with fire department. It's a very unbelievably untenable situation with the water in all the homes. Chief Pena talked about wildlife. You know, we saw a snake swimming right towards the boat. That's the kind of stuff that's out there. It's a very difficult situation. I will tell you, I was heartened by all the people out there, and not just first responders, but I'm talking about the public that was out there trying to help everybody else go in there and get property and things like that. And that's a great thing. Again, that is indicative of the Houston, the city, the public, and all that. But it has become very unsafe out there, and to keep going into that water places yourselves in danger, and you put our first responders in danger. Because this order, it has civil and potentially criminal penalties under state and local law on it. But if you go out there, and sometime tonight or tomorrow, you get into trouble and you call, and suddenly you're in trouble and you're calling for police, even though our officers have instructions, to not go out in dangerous situations, they're going to go. They'll go out there to try to save you. Don't put them in that position. Please evacuate. Heed the mayor's decision and evacuate out of that property and get out of that situation so that we can move on and hopefully move towards a mitigation, and someday, hopefully very soon, get you back in, but safely. Thank you.
So again, the situation with respect to the water release from the reservoir is not going to change. The Corps of Engineers is continuing to release the water to build more capacity on the west side of the reservoir. That's not going to change in the next 10 days. Okay? But what is happening is that, and I understand people wanting to protect their property, but this is one particular time when you have to put your own personal safety above your property. And the other factor that I would ask people to consider, as long as we know there are people in these homes and something should happen, a fire should occur, it's our desire to go in and save you, to do our best to save you, for the first responders to do their best to save you. That is what they're trained to do. They're dedicated to do it, and so and that's what they're going to do. But you cannot, and I'm asking people who are still choosing to stay in these areas, think of the first responders. They too have families. They too want to go to their families. And it is better, it's in everyone's best interest to evacuate these particular homes in order for the situation to improve rather than staying there and a fire occurring on your premises similar to what took place this morning. I think this morning is an example of what possibly could happen. And it was very difficult for first responders to try to get there and put out that fire. So again, I want it to be very clear because I know how things can go in different directions. This mandatory evacuation, it only applies to west of Gessner, east of Highway 6, south of Interstate 10, the Katy Freeway, and north of Briar Forest. And within that area, it only applies to homes, structures that are currently inundated with water. It is very narrow. If you're in that area and there is no water in your home, no water in your apartment complex, this order does not apply to you at all. Very limited, and and I'm hoping that you will agree to leave, that you will leave on your own, and I'm hoping that you will start leaving today, and there's still time to do it today safely. But as of tomorrow morning, I simply want to give due notice. As of tomorrow morning, I am instructing Centerport on a selective basis based on their own being out there in the field to start turning off the power to these homes where water has already inundated the properties. Having said that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Any first responders hurt this morning in this fire here? Do you know?
No, not in this fire.
No one was hurt this morning, and we want to keep it that way. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
On a separate subject, any update on when the curfew may be lifted? There are business owners who are asking for that to be lifted, perhaps in certain areas that are not impacted by.
Well, let me just say things have gone well, and we certainly now there are more assets, more law enforcement personnel that have come in from Austin, San Antonio, Fort Worth, El Paso, other areas that are here. People, and I want to thank Houstonians for adhering to the curfew. I don't know if we had any citations last. There were no citations last night, so people are cooperating almost at a very, very, very high percent. If this continues for the duration of this weekend, then I will look to lift it. But I'm just taking it on a day-by-day basis.
Okay, and the response to business owners who say they'd like to start putting those tax dollars back into the economy.
And I certainly want those tax dollars back in the economy. For right now, my number one issue is public safety. And I understand people want, and that's why even with the curfew, very narrow, midnight to 5 o'clock. Midnight to 5. People who are going to work, coming from work, exempted. People who are needing shelters, volunteering and working at shelters, exempted. So it's narrowly constructed. But what I will say to all Houstonians, it has helped to maintain the public safety during some very stressful times. And I know the inconvenience and the impact that it's having on businesses, especially those businesses that work at night, restaurants, bars, you name it. I understand that. But I'm going to ask even business owners and others, for a very short period of time, if you'll simply be patient with us, let us get past this moment. And so for tonight, for tomorrow night, it will remain in place. And then I will review it on Monday, and we'll see where we are.
Last question.
Sure.
Have there been any more arrests for looting?
Chief Satterwhite.
Yeah. So to date, we've only had 18 arrests for looting.
From the beginning?
From the beginning. This is from Friday, August 25th. As a matter of fact, in total, we've only had about 400 arrests since Friday, August 25th, which in this city is remarkably low. Okay, I mean, this is a great city. We have a much better city, but we do make arrests. But given the population, but yeah, only 18 for looting and 400, just over 400 total.
In fact, when I shared that with the president today, he was amazed at how well the city has performed. And so I think because we were anticipatory on some things and put some things in place and have asked people for their cooperation, Houstonians have responded. They've responded. And so I'm just asking for everyone's patience and everyone's cooperation. I will not maintain the curfew longer than what we need. Let's get through today, tonight. Let's get through tomorrow, tonight, and then I'll assess it and evaluate it on Monday morning. Okay.
In response to all the volunteerism from neighbors and people out of state coming in to help and everything.
The response from volunteers in the city, outside the city, has been overwhelming. I was at the Houston Police Officers Building today and ran into people that were here from Colorado, which was amazing. I was at the shelter at the George R. Brown, and that was amazing. There were people from outside the state of Texas that were here to help out. And then Houstonians have simply stepped up. The contributions from Houstonians have been so great. We are now taking contributions that people sent for the shelters, for example, and we're now distributing some of those items through distribution centers throughout the city of Houston. Because most people who found themselves in distress did not come to the shelters. Most people chose to stay in their homes. And there are a number of people, especially, let me just say, especially people, low-income individuals, senior citizens, that are in their home. And we need to go and assist them in pulling out their sheetrock, pulling out their wet carpet, and putting them in a better state. And so now we are putting forth a massive, I guess they told me I shouldn't be announcing it, but since I started, a massive volunteer program, working in conjunction with others to go door to door to assist individuals in helping them in terms of pulling stuff out of their homes, replacing things in their home, and to help to immediately start putting them in a better place. But the response from volunteers have been so tremendous. The other thing is that we have started sending things down to Beaumont, the Port Arthur area. Things that were sent to this city to help us out, we are now helping our communities outside the city of Houston and Harris County. So I'm very pleased. I think we've come a long way already in a short period of time, and that's why I'm simply asking for people's cooperation. You know, we're not trying to do anything more than we need to do, and that's why it's so important for people who are living in their homes in this part of town that they work with us, and we'll get them back in their homes as quickly as possible. But for right now, it's posing a risk to our first responders as well as to themselves. Yes, sir.
With your evacuation order, do you have an idea of how many homes are involved in this, or how many people might be in those homes?
Yeah, based on the firefighters canvassing, there are approximately, let's say about 300, the number I got is 297, let's say about 300 residents that have chosen to shelter in place in this particular geographical parameter. And again,
the area affected by your evacuation
right,
order.
about 300 that have chosen to stay. And the problem is, you know, these are first responders. If you're in trouble, if there's a fire, it's very, very difficult for a firefighter just to stand by and see your house burn and they know you're in there.
Sure. How many homes are those 297 in? You know?
They're about, when you include apartment complexes, units, they're about 4,600 when you include the apartment complexes. If you separate the apartment complexes out, I think there's about 3,300? About 3,300.
So about 3,300 residents is total in this area?
Right, and many have already voluntarily left. I would venture to say that in this affected area, most people have already left. They are not there.
Do you know how many residences are still occupied? How many homes are those 297 people distributed?
I can't tell you that. I can simply say that based.
Does the question make sense?
Yeah, yes, it makes sense. Because in some of these homes, there are more than one person.
Well, sure.
Okay, but I can tell you, we just simply know that there are about 300 residents that are remaining in this affected area that we are asking to voluntarily. We're asking now. No, we're not asking. We're saying it's a mandatory evacuation. Okay.
And if they don't leave, will they be arrested?
Let's put it this way: they assume the total risk. Okay.
Including the ride in the squad car?
They assume the risk. Nobody wants to arrest any, but at the same time, if I'm based on the information that I have, if I know there's a public danger and I'm issuing a mandatory evacuation and you choose to stay, okay, come on. What I'm saying to you as your mayor, you may not like what I'm saying, but I'm gonna say it to you anyway. It is not in your best interest. But even more than that, I want to protect the homeowner that chooses to stay, but I'm going to protect these first responders as well. I want them to go home to their families safely. And I think there comes a time when you have to exercise good common sense. And this is one time when you have to put person over property. We're going to work to protect your property. I'm simply asking for them to come out. And that's why at tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., Center Point will start turning off the power. And yet?
En español, por favor. The location. Just look.
Bueno, en español va a haber una evacuación mandatoria empezando what time is it?
7 a.m.
De las 7 de la mañana en la área identificada dentro. Déjame agarrar la. Okay. La evacuación mandatoria va a estar en la área de West Gessner, al este del I-6, al sur del I-10 hasta Katy Freeway, hasta el norte a la calle Briar Forest. Y nomás se va a concentrar en las casas que estén inundadas. Las casas que estén en esta área y que tengan agua dentro de sus casas. Si ustedes viven en esta área y sus casas no tienen inundación, ustedes no van a estar afectados por esta orden de evacuación. Okay?
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, real quick, can you just touch on your meeting with the president today and how things look going forward?
It was a very productive day, I would tell you. Had an opportunity to visit with him and his chief of staff, General Kelly. In fact, I rode with him from Ellington Field to NRG. We talked about he wanted to know where things were in the city of Houston and in our area. I pointed to him the importance of housing. People are transitioning out of shelters. People are still in homes that need to be rehabbed or rebuilt. And it's important for us to operate with the greatest degree of urgency. You know, the people are looking to us on all levels, the federal government, the state level, and the local level, to respond with the greatest degree of urgency. One of the things that I requested was advance funding so we could engage in rapid repair housing. And what I mean by that, there are, in our area, there may be, let's say, 50,000 units, homes, apartments that have been impacted. We need to do it as best we can to put people in a position where they can kind of stay in their homes while the bigger repairs are being done. They did that similarly, I think, in Louisiana, where it's the rapid repair homes, and they allowed funding up to $15,000. I've asked that be increased because of City of Houston and things that cost a little more, to increase that to $35,000, which would enable people to start making repairs in certain parts of their home while the bigger repairs take place. And we need advanced funding on that. We need to work to try to provide housing for those in low-income communities, those who are renters. That's critically important. So housing. The other thing that I stressed was that debris removal. Right now, there are people that are back to their homes and they're already putting that debris out on the curb. And that's going to take place, that's taking place all over the city. Now, the City of Houston crews have already started. We started on Thursday, had crews out in Kingwood today. But in large part, we will be judged by how quickly we can remove this debris in front of people's houses, because that debris will serve as a constant reminder of Hurricane Harvey. So we have to remove it quickly. And plus, it's a public safety issue we don't. The cost for the City of Houston to remove this debris could be as much as $250 to $300 million. I asked for an advance of $100 million so that we can aggressively ramp up our debris removing program, and he was very sensitive to that. In fact, there was a question whether or not it was going to be like what the match would be. In some cases, it's like 75-25, but on the debris removal, I think he's agreed to like 90%. Okay, with respect to Category B, and this involves like law enforcement and other damages and costs you associated with the storm, and I think he's agreed to 100% match, on that, which is a plus. And then I asked, so debris removal, that's critically important. I don't want the debris to be in our city very long at all. I've said to my staff, we will work as feverishly as we can to remove this debris. The other element that I asked him to consider, something that hasn't been done across the country, and that is we have a lot of first responders who are out there and their homes have been badly damaged or destroyed by flooding waters. Chief Satterwhite, I don't think he minds me saying this, Chief Satterwhite happens to be one. I didn't mean to call your name out, Chief. But the point is, for our first responders, I've asked for an expedited registration FEMA program for them. We cannot ask first responders to be out on the street working 12, 16 hours a day, for example, if not longer, and they have undergone significant damage to their homes. And so we need to expedite the process for them so that they don't have to wait and be at the end of the line in order to process their claims. And we need to do that. And he gave a big thumbs up on that. So it was a very positive conversation. He indicated, his desire to work with the city, Harris County. He toured, with County Judge Ed Emmett in NRG. But it was a positive conversation. I think we're off to a good start, because it's going to take all of us working together. And this is one time. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what your label is. I think what people are only looking for at this point, they're just looking for results. Okay? Thank you all so very much.